Welcome to the Advance Your Art podcast, where we talk about the journey from artist to entrepreneur and everything in between. You've worked hard to hone your craft. Now take it to the next level with tips, techniques, strategies, and routines used by successful artists to grow their businesses and careers. Now, let's get started and have some fun with your host, Yuri Cataldo.
Well, hello, podcast listeners. Welcome to another episode of the Advance Your Art podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, author and artist Thomas Neel. Tom, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you, Yuri?
I'm doing fantastic as well. It's a cold and rainy day in Boston, but I'm inside, so I can't complain on that side. So again, want to thank you so much for joining me. I really appreciate your time. For my listeners who are not as familiar with your work, how do you describe yourself and what you do?
Well, I would say if I was meeting your listeners at a party, I would probably tell them I'm an artist. I've been one for 31 years, and that's generally what I go by. Mm-hmm. But very quickly, I would probably tell them I'm spending a lot of my time writing now. I've written all my life, and so it's kind of paralleled my art career. But, you know, to me, writing is just another way of expressing yourself, and that's what we artists do. We creatively express ourselves. So I'm an artist and a writer.
Excellent. What originally got you into being an artist?
You know, if I try to go down the shortest possible route, but an important route to say that when I got out of high school, I did not go to college, and I had a few comfortable directions that I wanted to go. One was a passion for automobiles, and the other one was a passion for art. And I really felt from a standpoint of being a young man trying to make a living that going down the automotive side was smarter. And I did that for 10 years of my life and rose up through the ranks. I won't make this about the automotive career, but I advanced very quickly.
Yeah.
I found myself at 31 years old being number 3 person at about a $35 million company under an enormous amount of stress and finding myself not as happy with what I was doing because while it was about automobiles, it really wasn't anymore. It was about sales and pressure and all the rest of this type of thing. Mm. And my father had passed away, Yuri, at when I was about 24. He was a man at 52. And now being 64 myself, I realize how young 52 really is. Yeah. He passed away from a disease, and that was that. And I learned right then that you kind of have to live your life because you never know how much time you're going to have.
Yeah.
And I told myself I was unhappy and that I was going to go and seek what my other choice in life, which was to be an artist. It took me about 2 years in between I'm leaving, the kind of what I did in the middle, and then becoming an artist and actually selling my paintings. But that was, again, 31 years ago, and I'm very happy that I made the move that I did.
Yeah.
And so that's kind of how it happened.
Sure. Okay, so as you were, again, evolving and moving into this next phase, what was it about art or painting that attracted your attention and focus?
Well, I think it had been that I had always loved to draw. And so I found myself finding that way to express myself, whether it was drawing. Painting is just an extension of drawing. Mm-hmm. And I kind of went down that route and found out that was natural for me. But, I've been a guitar player all my life, and I could have gone down that road. I could have been a sculptor, but I just decided that this was the thing that felt best to me. Mm-hmm. And I think one of the things that I would share with your listeners who may be in a position of trying to figure out how to express themselves is make art fun first before you try to make a living with it. I think it's one of the big mistakes that people make. If you learn how to just have fun with something, you may find that you are attracted to something different, where if you're saying, I've got to make money, so I better paint paintings, it generally ends up as a mistake.
Mm-hmm.
So it's good to try a lot of different things and find out. To me, like, the worst thing in the world is to have a person that struggles with guitar all their life only to find out they could have been the greatest piano player in the world.
Right.
Right? So, as you're learning what you're doing, let your inner child come out. And, in my book, I call it the carefree side of life, because very often we're very careful, and that's the opposite of being carefree.
Mm-hmm.
And then sometimes we become careless, which to me is a lack of intelligence, So, but being carefree just means that you're going to let your inner self be kind of whimsical and have fun, not let your responsibilities that happen as we become more and more adults just suppress what really is a good time. And so that's how you should treat art, to me. Treat it as a good time first.
Yeah, excellent. Well, I think that's a good segue to talk about your book. So you released earlier this year, Live an Artful Life, The Art of Living Artfully. What initially made you want to write this book?
It's a great question, Yuri. I have to tell you, I didn't set out to do it, but it was really just the kind of conversation you and I are having.
Mm-hmm.
My wife and I owned an art gallery, and people would come in and have conversations with me, and they found out I was an artist. And all of a sudden, they would start talking to me differently. And in the process of that, our last art gallery, which we've opened galleries, closed galleries, we've done different stuff in our life, but we had this gallery. I was living in Virginia, outside of Washington, D.C., and about an hour. And the people that were coming in the door were defense contractors, lobbyists, lawyers, politicians, very highly successful people. And that, combined with my friends, which for some reason most of my friends have been very wealthy people, I always found out that a lot of these people didn't seem all that happy or as successful as they were, and especially when they were getting to the ends of their careers. And I felt that they were, a lot of times people become what they do, not what they are.
Mm-hmm.
It's kind of like, somebody says, "Who are you?" You go, "Well, I'm an attorney, or I'm a plumber, or I'm an electrician, or I'm whatever." But that's not really who you are. That's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
And after you stop doing it, it's what you were. So people become lost trying to figure out really what they are, when what they are was really down inside the whole time. Creativity is the thing that brings that out of us.
Mm-hmm.
So, I found out people were creatively starved, and after a while, years of talking to people, I've been working on the book and building, and then finally I got it out of me.
Yeah. Well, good. And it's an absolutely fantastic book. So let's talk about, you mentioned this, people being creatively starved. So, I'm guessing this kind of parallels your own career of switching from automotive to becoming an artist. But how, in your own life, how did you, I guess, bring out the creativity that you needed to, and how do you encourage others to, feed their creativity engine?
Again, a very good question. For me, I think there was a couple of things that happened. One thing, I never let my creative side completely dissolve into day-to-day life. Now, it's a little harder today because I'm old enough that when this happened, there wasn't all the social media. We weren't being pounded 24/7 by the news media. The world wasn't so polarized and all these things. So the first thing I would say to people is that you really have to realize that a lot of things bombarding you on a day-to-day basis are unimportant to you. They will not do anything but create stress and create problems for you. So you need to ratchet it back and take that stuff in doses that you can handle. If you find yourself stressed and under pressure, I don't think there's anything that is as freeing as creativity. So start to move in that direction and turn off the 6 o'clock news and worry about it less. Everybody has to understand that even when you're watching the weather is the most profitable part of a newscast, and that they are trying to sell you advertisement via the weather. So after a while, all of a sudden, those places are called the storm center, even when they're just trying to tell you it's a sunny day. So move away from that stuff as much as you can, and try to keep yourself out of the politically charged world that we live in.
Yeah.
And move towards what I call not just stopping and smelling the roses, but looking at the roses. And appreciate the things that are around you that are handmade. Look for handmade, not manufactured, even if you don't buy it. And I really say in this book, Yuri, that even if there's a listener here that has no desire whatsoever to be an artist, none whatsoever. It doesn't mean that you can't live an artful life. In fact, people that go to plays, that see theater, that seek out live music, that fill their house with color or design. All these people are living an artful life. Just make sure you understand that it's really you that's kind of in control. That's your canvas, and play with it and have fun.
Yeah. Excellent. Very good things to know. So along with, a couple of these other items in your book, you also talk about, I guess, focusing on the individual and their own particular talents and strengths. How did you find that in your own self and realize that, because you mentioned earlier, you could have been a number of different types of artists, but you chose painting. How did you choose painting for yourself as your ultimate artistic expression? And how can someone else find their own unique talent and gift?
Well, there is some complication to these things, but I think nobody knows themselves better than themselves. And so, I think that you have to use the tools that you've used to move along. Take painting classes and try it. Take music classes. If you say to yourself, well, I don't want to just try taking piano lessons for the heck of it, well, then don't. And if painting seems interesting to you, well, then do. But I think once you start to explore your creative side, still the most important advice that I can give anybody is to approach it a little bit more like a child. We have to realize as adults, and I know that, to your listeners, some may be adults and some may be young adults, but you have to remember, here's what happens in life. And it doesn't just happen in my life, it happens in everybody's life. As you get older, you get more responsibility. And as you get more responsibility, you let this responsibility start to control you and not the responsibility. I'm not talking about walking away from responsibility. I'm just saying that you have to give yourself that time to have fun and understand that responsibility has to be kept in its corner. There's always going to be a time to pay bills. There's going to be times to worry about work. There's going to be times that you have to think about family and all the rest of these things. But don't ever let any part of your creative side completely slip away.